I'd like to read something to y'all. I'm doing this in response to Ice Cube. Ice Cube did a lot. He was on with Roland Martin, and he had a call to action. And I wrote this a long time ago, and I sent it to some people. But now I'm just going to read it and just get it out there. And whatever sticks, sticks. If any of it, and whatever doesn't, doesn't. That's fine too. Um, but and this is just a rough draft, Joe. Okay. It's called A Way Forward, the People's Agreement, Phases 1 through 3. It's by me. Whereas a mutually acceptable resolution has not been able to be reached between the residents of Austin, Texas, and law enforcement agencies and governing bodies. Whereas the residents of Austin, Texas are coming in good faith that it is the desire of law enforcement, government agencies, and governing bodies to reach mutually acceptable relationship between said organizations and the community. Whereas many studies have been conducted by reputable entities and data analyzed by and assimilated by objective, qualified entities and individuals. And whereas multiple focus groups, activist organizations, and City of Austin Commission committees have submitted recommendations to mitigate the well-documented disparities with little to no measurable improvement on the part of the audited organizations. And whereas peaceful demonstrations by residents in resistance to rampant and systemic police brutality are met with violence and negligible reform from law enforcement and government entities. Let it be known on this day, on this 19th day of June 2020, it's not the 19th, it's August 8th, 2020. But let it be known that the following agreements of the people, the residents of Austin, Texas, Travis County, are to be met in order to begin the long process of rebuilding community trust in law enforcement agencies and their ability to meet the needs of the community they are hired or elected to protect and serve. This government includes 3 phases: grounding, breathing, and restoration, and will be followed up with additional phases as a guide through this transition of the norms of law enforcement, oversight, and governance. It addresses and guides practices and policy of law enforcement agencies, their governing bodies, police unions, the judicial and carceral systems, as well as local, state, and federal governments. Some of these agreements are non-negotiable. However, reasonable alternatives can be considered for other elements of this document. Whether or not an element of a document is non-negotiable is clearly indicated. Failure to reach an agreement on these matters will result in re-election of someone else. It will result in the election of someone else, financial withdrawal, recall of office and or loss of re-election, and any and all applicable civil and or criminal court filings. So the resolutions are as follows. This is just a rough draft. The grounding, phase 1, the grounding. A public apology and resignation of Police Chief Brian Manley. City Council recalls any additional funding approved this year for law enforcement and put a stop to all future planned additional funding talks for 3 years. Schedule and announce date of emergency police union contract renegotiation. No closed door meetings. Meetings must be held publicly. Implement a no-call, no-show policy for all patrol officers. Cease all random patrols. End patrols of residential areas unless expressly asked by that community to provide a presence. Police who stay at their stations unless a call for assistance is made. Limited but regular patrol of business districts is also permitted. The exceptions to this are school zones, where an officer may be at each corner and business district. This is non-negotiable, as study after study has shown that near 50% of all arrests are a result of traffic stops, and that people of color are disproportionately targeted, profiled, arrested, and charged. This negates law enforcement's credibility and dissolves our trust that law enforcement is capable of being objective. For this reason, as a community, we are retracting your permission to patrol our community until this is addressed in a real and measurable way. Phase 2, The breathing. Release all nonviolent people in jail awaiting pretrial hearings and court dates. Formation of a committee of qualified community members to review arrest record data for the purpose of sentence commutation, reduction, or dismissal. Review district attorney office pretrial forms and processes by a committee of qualified community members for the purpose of revision to mitigate systemic racism present in the form. Remove military weaponry and vehicles from law enforcement entities and prohibit the use of these going forward. Formation of a committee of qualified community members to review training curriculum and methods for the purpose of revision to mitigate brutality and encourage de-escalation as a best practice and culture. Create a national misconduct registry of officers, civil servants, and law enforcement staff that are dangerous to the public or abuse their position. This registry will have ratings from negligence and extreme bias to the most severe for those that have killed a member of the community. Look to the misconduct registry that applies to CNAs, nurses, doctors, etc. for guidance on database structure and management. It may be possible to just add a law enforcement. It may be possible to simply add law enforcement category to existing database. Implement the honeybee clause. An officer will be immediately terminated if they discharge their weapon, resulting in the injury or death of a member of the community. An officer will immediately be terminated if they are involved in an encounter with the public that results in serious injury or death of a member of the community. These incidents will be investigated by an outside objective agency or committee of qualified individuals agreed upon by the public. If found to be dangerous and or abusive by the agency/committee, any and all applicable charges must be filed and the case must be heard by a grand jury. The officer will be placed on a national misconduct registry denoting the confirmed incidents, just as other professions that serve the public are. Multiple incidents that result in criminal or civil verdicts against the officer, or severe incidents such as sexual assault or killing a member of the community, will make the officer permanently ineligible to work with vulnerable populations, security positions, or law enforcement, and they are subject to all applicable laws and penalties. Prohibit the use of deadly force by officers. Only senior level officers with clean disciplinary records may make the call to use deadly force. Require extensive expert level de-escalation training for those senior level officers with the authority to call for the use of deadly force. Those are all things that people do already in state systems, by the way, just not the police. Phase 3, restoration. Require that employees of law enforcement entities successfully complete mental health training, mental health first aid certification. Require that every employee officer of law enforcement entity be mental health first aid certified in order to engage with the public. Require that the officers live in the communities they serve. No more being policed by people that are completely detached from and have no investment in the needs and interests of the communities and the people they serve. The officers must live within the zip or the district in which they work. Require that officers' body cams be in working order and recording all interactions with the public, with failure to do so resulting in sharp, progressive disciplinary action up to and including termination and inclusion on the National Misconduct Registry. Psychological evaluations and pass-fail criteria need to be reviewed by an objective, diverse group of qualified individuals. This will be for the purpose of determining common personality traits and psychological markers of officers that have positive encounters with the public, as well as those that use excessive force. Then the objective will be to make adjustments to improve agency culture going forward. These are my thoughts. It's rough draft, but Ice Cube said do it, and you know it's Ice Cube, so y'all know where to get in contact with me. This document is already in the hands of other people. I am seeking the input of other people, and I do fully understand that 143 stands in the way of what I've said. but I also understand that 143 is only applicable in places where the community adopts it. So let's get to work on that, folks. Peace be.